Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how we can create Windows Server cluster without having storage or iSCSI server to utilize the the hard disk. First of all, I'm going to go through the steps how we can doing that, and we will go step by step in a practical way. We'll create the cluster. Here we create two virtual machines, and then we will add for them a storage. We can see that. Then we will install the features of cluster failover feature, and we will assign a particular hard disk for the storage and particular IP address. Then we will add the witness. Then we can do some test for the failover. I'm going to my Azure portal, which is I'm doing it as a test lab. So here I'm going to create two virtual machines under my same Active Directory server or the domain controller. Go here, normal, and create virtual machine. I'm going to use the same subscription that I'm using and the same resource group. I'm going to call the machine like server cluster one, and then I'm going to select the operating system. I am already familiar with this operating system in the 2022 data center. Normally adding the username, confirming the username, confirming the password, then next. Okay, here for the hard disk, I'm going to create 3 hard disks for each node of this server. So I'm going here to create, just selecting 32 size. Okay, and again size I needed 32. Yes, and again 32. I'm going to show you how we can activate it and how to work with this hard disk later. Okay, next, networking. I don't need a public IP address because I will access those two servers locally from the domain controller. Management, monitoring, no need for monitoring. Advance, then create. Okay, we should do the same step for the second server. Normally, the cluster servers, it's recommended to have the two servers exactly same hardware as part of like memory and CPU and hard disk. Okay, the creating in progress. To save time, I will create the second server here. Just move to the virtual machines, create server. Of course, I'm going to use the same subscription and same resource group. I'm going to give server cluster2. You can give any name. I need also operating system. Okay, the username and the password. Next, for the hard disk, we're going to use the same hard disk size what we used for the first node. Change 32. Okay. Again, I'm repeating the same for the second hard disk. Okay. And the third should be same size. Next, networking. When I remove just a note or a tip, when I remove the public IP, it's going to reduce a bit amount of the cost of the virtual machine. Of course, you can do this in Azure or any local environment you have. Next, no need for monitoring. Next, and create. Create. It's in progress. Good. Here, so this is the first machine. It's being created. I'm just looking for the local IP address, which can be seen here. Then 0014, and I'm expecting the other one to be 15. So we're back to the domain controller. Then 000014. Okay. I'm going to log in with the local admin account which I used to create the virtual machine. Then we will join the domain. It's loading. Just move this here. going to go and check the other server which is being created. Go to the resource and check. It's here, 15, as I expected. Okay, so it's 15 here. I'm going to save it on the desktop. Server cluster 2. It's here. Connect. Verification. And it's loading. Okay, we are back here, and this is the server one, and this is the server 2. Okay, in each node we are going to install the feature of the failover cluster. Let's go to the server 1, server manager, close this box. You can see it's not there, so we have to install it. Add rules and feature. Next. 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 And then next. Failover cluster. Just select it. Click OK. I prefer always to click this box in case of any update. Click yes. Install. We did this in node 14, and we will repeat the same steps in node 15, which is the server 2. Manage, add roles and features. Next. Next. Again, next. Failover cluster. Next. Prefer to restart if required. Install. Let's go back to the first node. It's done, showing here installation succeeded on server cluster 1. I'll close it, and we can make sure that this feature is being installed on the first node, failover cluster. Before we proceed, I want to make sure that each node having the necessary hard disk we created in the beginning. I'm just going to the computer management here. I'm coming to the disk management, maximize, cancel it. I don't need to open it here, just cancel it. I don't want to initiate the disk. It will be initiated later when we can do it together later. We just want to make sure here that 3 hard disk is there and each one of them is 32 node. If we can come to the computer manager, we can see only the C and D drive which is created while we install the virtual machine from the Azure. It's done. Let's go to the second node. Clustering feature is installed. It's very important to have the same hard disk on the same size, otherwise it will not work. Cancel it. Three hard disk here. Okay, let's go back to the node 1 and initiate the failover cluster feature, and we will start to install the cluster. Don't show it again. Here. Right click mouse on the cluster, create a cluster, next, one minute. We need to make sure that we join the domain. If we didn't join the domain, it's not going to work. Who am I? See, I am not part of the domain. Just I want to make sure the domain controller here is root.test. Go to the server one. Merge server, local server, and we can see here we are still under work group. So to join the domain, I need to change the IP address to static, and I have to put the local DNS to the domain controller. Change the adapter. IB6, I don't need it. So IB4. Okay. So we are here running under 14. Ten dot 0.0.14 255 255 255. and the default gateway is my domain controller 10.0.0.1, I guess. Let us double check here. .4. .4, and the default and the preferred DNS is 10.0.0.4. Click OK. When I click OK, now I will face some disconnections for sometimes to recognize the IP address as it's become a static IP address. Yeah, right, we'll come back soon. Yes, it's back, and I want to check. IP address is here, 14. Just I want to check that I am able to access the internet. Change to English, accept. Yep, it's working fine. So we'll repeat the same step for the node 2. Change the IP address, then we will join the domain controller. Or we can save time and join the domain because it's require a restart. So here I'm going to change the domain controller, which is test. Okay. I logged in with the domain admin username. So both server I am creating now, I am going to log in with the domain admin username. To be able to create the cluster, this is required for both server. Click OK, it's going to restart. Click OK, restart now. We'll minimize this. And we will go to the second server. We'll do the same steps. Change the adapter. Disable IP6. We don't need it. IP4 10.0.0.15 255. And the default gateway is my domain controller. As well as the DNS 10.0.0.4. Click OK. OK. Some disconnection will be now. Okay, it's back. Let's go to the server manager, local server, change the workbook group to domain root.test, click OK. Welcome to domain. Yes, restart now. Okay, back to the domain controller. So we can see the two computers now. It's been created here, which is the server cluster 1 and server cluster 2. And this is my domain controller, who am I. Okay, I'm going to log into the server 1, and now I am not going to log in as a admin 123. I'm going to log in as a domain user. Root slash okay. So I'm logging now with a new user, which is the domain user, and I will get a new profile. Same I'm going to do for the second node. I guess it's finished after the restart, because normally Azure machine is restarting very fast. Root click yes. I don't need it in this way. I'm going to open it from here. Open desktop server 2. Open display as a full. Okay, this is 15. Let it be here on the left. And the server 115. And the server 1 is for 14, the server 2 is 15. Just to double check. Who am I have to be login as a local, as a domain user, not as a local user. It's very important. So we will go to the failover cluster manager and start creating the cluster. Right click mouse, create a cluster. Next. Okay, here is a cluster asking me which server you need to add it to the cluster. Of course, I can have many servers as a failover cluster to be member of this particular feature, which is the failover cluster. I will select here the servers which I need. Of course, they are computer and they are from my Active Directory. Server plus, which is going to select. I just give the first few letters from the both servers and it will recognize from the Active Directory. Click OK. Next. Next. Next, it will run the validation that both servers are applicable to be part of this cluster. If this fail, that means that both server are, or one of them are not eligible to be part of this cluster. So if you have more than 2 nodes, it's very necessary to check this cluster. Excuse me. It's going to check the IP address, going to check the network, going to check the hard disk if it's there, all type of validation, and it's very necessary to know if there is an error from this testing. After finishing this testing, there is a report. I recommend to go through and find it out. It might create the cluster. If there is error, it might create a cluster. It will work fine sometimes, but you will face error later while you are running your applications or your server when it's in the production. Okay, we can see most of them success. Warning here for network validation communication, no issue. Success, and finish. Okay, now it's asked me the cluster for a cluster name of this particular cluster. So I'm going to call it cluster 1 and 2. So this is my cluster name. I'm just going to save it. And now it will ask me which IP address you need. So I think we are now having 14 and 15. I'm going to give 16. Before I proceed, just I want to ping this IP address. Which is unreachable for this domain, which is mean is not being used. Again, I will ping T and keep pinging. Now, after creating the cluster, it will start to recognize that this cluster is a part of the domain, and we can see it in the Active Directory later. Next. This feature, if there is any particular hard disk, I mean shared hard disk for both of the nodes, it will add it to the cluster. But now we remember that we have unassigned hard disk, which is it's not included in this part. I will click next. Now will start creating the cluster, and here will start recognize that the ping for destination unreachable will be a valid destination. Click finish, and that's it. This is our cluster. Okay. So this cluster have no roles, and it consists of two nodes, which is cluster server 1 and cluster server 2. This is our cluster here, and there is one network card, and we have no storage and no pool. We can go to the second node, which is 15, and open the failover cluster manager here. Oops, we will recognize suddenly that it's become part of the cluster. No roles, server 1 and server 2. Okay, let's go back to the node 1. We can close this. This is our cluster here. Okay, now we need to add the hard disk. Let's go and do it. Open PowerShell. Run as an administrator. And we need to run a few scripts here. I have the script here is ready. So we are going to use it one by one. I can paste it for you in the chat if required. Let's go to the server 1. Paste. And run. Yes to all. This actually is going to create a pool for the hard disk. The pool for the hard disk is very necessary to control and hold the hard disk inside the cluster. While it's running, I'm just going to pull the other node I wrote, the other script I wrote. Copy. And I'm going to open a new tab here. Wait. Okay. It's done. Finish. It's created the pool, but showing here there is no disk found. Okay. Zoom in. Again, zoom in. Okay. We remember that we created hard disk here with for each server with a particular size. So in my scenario, I created the size is 32. Sorry, not here, it is here. 32. Again, I'm going to make it bigger. Okay. So here I'm going to put 32. And my cluster name is get-cluster is this. disk head cluster. So with this script, make sure that you have the cluster names here. Control V. And run. Sorry, I need to put a quota here. Sorry. Star and star. Okay, it's created here. I can go to the server of server cluster manager. Click on the storage, click on the pool. I can see here is pool is created, and the owner of this pool is the node 2, which is server cluster 2. That's it. And have the 2 cluster and the shared volume and the cluster performance disk. Okay, we can check that. And before we used to have C and D, and in the computer manager here we used to able to see this 3 hard disks on each node, and now it's gone. It's been reserved in the cluster. Okay, how I'm going to use it in the cluster? It's a shared volume in the cluster. Here, cluster storage, and it's a volume 1. So this particular area, it's been reserved for the both server to access the resource. You can see here, folder, and inside the folder I'm going to create a text file. Hello, I am on server 1. File, save. I'm going to close it and jump to the second node. Open the File Explorer, C drive, and this is the cluster storage, the volume, and the file I created. It's just here, and I am the server 2. So in this way I created a cluster shared volume in the cluster service, included 2 nodes, without utilizing a storage or SCSI server. Okay, we are here now in the node 1, and the cluster is being created, and we can see the disks are running fine, and the area of created the cluster, it's a shared disk volume, which is accessible for the both node on the C drive, as we can see here. And this is the text file that we created from the both node. Okay, now we need to create a witness that the server or the witness folder is responsible to monitor which nodes are up and running and to keep the resource of the hard disk, to keep the resource of the cluster running on the full function. So we can see here the two nodes are running, server 1 and server 2. So we need for the witness folder another machine. It's not necessary to be a server or not necessary to be it's not necessary to be a server. It can be part of any server, or not necessary to be a Windows server. It can be like a normal Windows. In my case here, I'm going to create it on the domain controller. I'm going to show you how we can create that. And C drive, for example, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it witness folder, W folder. I need to give it a permissions and security. This witness folder should be a permission here, should be shared for, as we can see this, for the administrator on the local domain, on the same domain, which is the username being created on the domain, the user being created on the cluster. That's it. The username, oops. And I'm going to add the object here. The server 1 and server 2. And the cluster name. Which is this cluster 1 and 2. All of this should have full access to this folder. Okay, this is the sharing part, the same we are going to do for the security part. Sorry, edit, add, the administrator, okay, and the object for the computers. On the cluster. This is our cluster. All of them, as I mentioned, full access. Okay. Before we move to the creating the witness, just I want to make sure that the cluster is, and I want to show you the cluster is being added here. So this is my cluster. This is the one. So it's been added to the domain, to the Active Directory. Okay, let's go back to the node 1. and we are going to create the column disk. Right click mouse, more action, configure cluster column. Okay, next, select the column witness, and I needed a file, share, browse, okay, so this is on the disk itself, and this is the sharing name. Copy, paste it here, show, let's require the server name. Let me get the server name here. This is the file, the folder. Click OK. Next. Next. That's it. So this is the witness folder here, and we can see it in the cluster specification. This is the part domain, and this is the file. It can be changed later if required, and if you change the server name of the witness, you can change it later if required. Okay. Finally, I'm going to show you a test for the failover of the cluster here, and we are just going to minimize those windows and take this file. Okay, we are going to run a small test for the cluster server to restart one node and see if the other node is in function. So here we are in node 15, and this is rules for the storage shared volume, and those both nodes are running, and this is the hard disk here, and this is the pool. I'm just going to open the node again to the storage volume and see our file here. We are restarting node 1. Before saving that, so I didn't save, so it's not going to write immediately, but I'm going to restart the node 1. File, restart. We go back to the node 2. Some response is waiting here. Restart anyway. Okay, we back to the node 2 and we save. File, save, and we can see here the node is down. The server 1 node is down, and the rules will start moving, and the resource will start moving to the functional node, which is the running node. And we can see this also, the rules, it's been moved to the second node. Let us check. As I told you, Azure server is very fast. Let's go to node 1. This is node 1. Okay, we move it to the right side. It's starting the node 1. And here I'm going to explain to you a very important thing while you are doing the testing for the cluster. So if you restart one node, especially which is like heavy load or heavy data on the cluster shared volume, do not restart until the full synchronizing is happening. And we are going to check that. I hope I can explain it to you in a proper way. Then we can understand it better. So here is the storage volume. It's just a warning. See, we are restarting. So the data is there is no lose in data. But just I have a script here. I think we can run it on the second node, and okay, it's already here. As I mentioned, sometimes the sync is not happening properly. Now we can see in the cluster here, the 2 disk is up and running, and all the disk which is consist of this particular storage is healthy and no issue in that. See here. But my recommendation is to run this script. You can note it down to see how much percent of the synchronization is happening. Now, because there is no loss of data and there is no lose of synchronization is there, so you cannot see anything here. I'm going to try to show it to you in another example. If we run this script here in the node 1, but let me write the script here. on PowerShell as an administrator. Script paste. Let it load. It will come this box as green and run. Okay, I'm going to go to the folder again here and let me get some random data. If I have here some data, there is no data, this is a fresh machine. Maybe we can get like any data and copy it to the local storage, which is the volume storage here. I'm just going to create a temp folder, paste, and now I'm going to restart the node 2. Let's go back to node 1 and check the script. Normally it will work fine in Azure because the disks are not part of the server. They are already connected to the cloud, so you will not feel it here. You will not feel that there is some mess of data lost. But you can try it. While doing restart, here let us do get storage, and there is no data loss. No data loss, but my recommendation is to try it especially on local machines, which is maybe you didn't build it in Azure. You can feel that there is some percentage. Otherwise, if you didn't do this and you don't know that, you don't make sure that the full synchronizing is happening, I can show you what problem you will get. If you go to the cluster itself, it's loading. If you go to the cluster itself and the storage, you can feel if you restart both nodes without full synchronization is there, you can see an error here of the volume. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. See you later.